Awesome. It's been a minute. That sucks. Oh well. Molly, what's happening?
Sorry, my mute wouldn't go off. Not a whole lot over here. Just enjoying the weather. School's out.
Yeah, buddy. School is
Hmm.
out.
Yeah.
Hey, I was gonna ask you, did you since our last convo, did you I think there was a woman you were trying to get to do the equity stuff with you. Did you get her to do something with you or did you find some?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
At the school?
Yeah, yeah, at the school.
Not yet.
Got it. Have you asked her?
No, I just haven't had time yet. With the end of school, there's always so much going on.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Dope, dope. All right. Good morning, good people. Great morning, good people. Thanks for jumping on. As you all know, this is the right call. This is a joint call. I did not put out 1,000 reminders or even post on social media because I currently have a love hate relationship, more of a hate relationship with social media right now. So, but it is great to see you. And I actually really enjoy when we have a smaller group because it feels like we can have more actual intimate conversations. So I actually wanted this to kind of be a interactive conversation. When we think about the timeline of where we are, June 10th, feels crazy that we're in June already and that half of the year is already over. um, but last month marked the 3 year anniversary of the death of George Floyd, and I think when I mentioned on our last call, I don't remember if I mentioned specifically like just recognizing where we are based on the timeline, um, which is something I would love to kind of hear about, maybe even revisit. But something I've been thinking about is not just even where you are, but how has your endurance or maybe even stamina uh, been based on how the world is responding? Like, how have you been as you are, still along this journey? Some of you have literally been on this journey even before we started the calls. Some of you, it kind of sparked, at the murder of George Floyd or when civil unrest happened. Some of you, it started when we were on the calls, whatever those things may be. I'm just really curious if we could get some folks to share, like, just where you are. And I'm making that very vague on purpose because I think how two things that come to mind: how you enter into anti-racism work is probably going to be very like on a long continuum. Second thing I think about is based on successes, failures, and your endurance or even stamina, you might be exhausted. You might be tired. You might have tried a few things and it hasn't worked. Life situations could have shifted. Work situations could have shifted. Your financial situation could have shifted. All of those things are intersectional. And so I think it's important to not skip over that, but also to think about like, where are we? So, two of the things that I ask all the time is like, what are the things that you want to accomplish? And what does it look like for you to make progress? um, that's something that has helped me kind of make it very like bite size, and at the same time, like we all have our own experiences, and so I'd love to, for a few people to kind of just share like where you at, how you been feeling with what's happening. Um, I have plenty of stuff we could talk about, but I just think it'd be great to kind of start there. Um, as we're kind of 6 months into the year, and 3 years removed from this atrocity that happened, um, which isn't isolated because there's plenty of other things that have happened and continue to happen because the world is going to continue to do the world. So I'd love for anybody who's willing to come off mute and just like how you feeling, where's your stamina, where's your energy, your endurance, what is shifted, what is frustrating. Apparently my dictation on my phone is running. I didn't know that was happening either. So anybody want to go first? You don't want to hear me complain about any of my stuff, I promise you. I could talk all day for it.
I can go first if no one else wants to go.
Yeah, let's do that. And then it looked like Jeremy might have been coming off mute. So
Okay.
Go for it.
Like we talked about, I've been working on stuff through my school. The thing that has changed for me is not really necessarily the work that I do, but it's the circles that I'm in. So I started joining the PTO, and then it was recognized to do some equity work with them by a person on our team. And also being recognized by the people in my life that that's just something that I do and that I am, has also been a shift, because I think at first people were surprised by it in me because it wasn't necessarily something I did before the murder of George Floyd. And now it's kind of something that they know about me and people ask me about or know that I do.
Yeah.
So I think that's been the biggest shift.
You and I talked a little bit. Have there been people that have been turned off by that? And then I would say even the other side, like, oh, excited. Like, I didn't know that about you. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. There's been both. I remember when you first started the calls, you were like, there's always a cost to this work. And there for sure has been. I mean, there's friends that I've lost because they don't understand. There's family members that still don't understand, and we just can't talk about it. And there are people that, like, it has brought us closer because they value that work too.
That's what's up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, were you planning on going? I don't know if you were reaching for the mute button or if you were just moving your phone. So I don't. Of course, I'm not trying to force you to talk.
Sorry, my technical difficulties. No, I was doing both, but I'm happy to wait until other people speak.
All right, appreciate you. For those of you all who just jumped in, we are just sharing where you are, things that you have experienced. The short version of it is, like, in context, we're 3 years removed from the death of George Floyd, and within that 3 years, there was probably 1,000 different things and feelings and emotions that may have happened that are intersectional in how you engage in the work. So it could be, actual professional job wise, it could be personal wise, it could be relationships, community. But how is your stamina / endurance? And are there things that you are, excited about, discouraged about? We're kind of just doing a check-in since we have a smaller group. Selfishly, I'm curious because I have gone probably through all of the emotions of, I'm really tired of, at this point in stage of my life, I'm in between passion and rage, and I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that, don't worry, because that is a soapbox that I will go on. But I'm kind of like tired of doing the classic DEI checkbox, and I do get really excited when I have conversations with people. Like I had one this week, twice this week, from good folks who know that they may not be able to change the system, but like within their wheelhouse, they're like, there has to be an opportunity to do something great. And I'm like, yes. And I'm still exhausted because companies make empty promises or people lie. Right? Like, so I'm just curious, like, where are you at? And if you don't want to jump in, I can just call on people. Yeah, go for it, Jeremy, because I was gonna say we might need to warm them up.
All right. So, good morning, everyone. How are you doing? The it's an interesting blend, or not blend, tension. Um, I work at the fire station down the street from 30th in Chicago, and I've kind of felt a connection and an ownership of the our our station's connection. So as a kind of as a visible representative of the city to the area, and I've made good friends and acquaintances, and I've in the community. And last year I was off on the Memorial Day or the Memorial block party, but I switched my shifts just to make sure that we went, because it is possible for us in our days to pretend that we didn't know about something. And this year I switched with an opposite shift captain who wanted nothing to do with going down there. And I happened to have two good crew members. We had a great time. And at this point, the George Floyd Memorial Block Party is sponsored by a corporation. And it was food vendors. There were lots and lots of T-shirts being sold. There was a lot of God on the side, a lot of evangelical stuff, music performances. It was a block party. Predominantly black, but it was a block party. It was great. It was cool. And at this point, the finding the way forward, so that it isn't just a thing of suffering, but a thing of and grief, but of moving forward and coming up with ways so that the organizers are not just living in the past, but moving forward. I get back from doing it. It was a good time. And I was touched by the number of people in the communities on a range of levels. Some of the dudes who were semi-reformed gang members who were in Agape, to some of the preachers, to the various community members, and I'm conspicuously white in that space, and I look distinct. So, but I'm also representing the fire department well, so that everyone has this favorable association with us, which is my goal, and as I want us to have a favorable and understanding with the community. 4 hours later, we were told, or 5 hours later, make sure all of our rigs have full fuel, our cell phones are charged, because the kind of the quote intel, which is just hunches by incurious leaders, was that, well, that thing happened today, there might be violence tonight. And so the lack of, no one asked me, and I'm probably the most connected of the fire department to that area. No one, but they just go in this default, black people getting together, there may be violence, and we may expect riots, as if, and so it's that inability to distinguish between one asshole with a gun who has been, and that same version of an asshole has been shooting up north side and south side for as long as we've had assholes and guns, and prior to 2020, 30th in Chicago was and remains gang territory and contested. So there have been shootings that have nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, because none of the shootings have anything to do with Black Lives Matter, but have to do with just the effects of an economic system. But getting people to understand that it isn't this miasmic blackness that is up to rebel and revolt. You still, at this level, 3 years down the road, I insist that the system doesn't get it, right? And so that's for me both the angering, the motivating, and for some of my crew members who have suffered kind of PTSD over the time, I keep saying, by putting ourselves out there, it redeems human connection, even though we're in it, and we're in blood, we're in death, we're in suffering and squalor and bad decisions. It still allows us to be open to the world, but it's tough for people who are pretty scarred by it. And then a separate point is, there's a writer who's a doctor, a woman who wrote a great book about being a black doctor and dealing with racism in the medical system. And I approached her about which she would read my manuscript or whatever. And there's always a very self-conscious thing where she's using her new platform to try to elevate black voices. And here I come. And I'm like, hey, so not quite black, not quite female, but hey, and she said she doesn't really do much stuff. And she just happened to turn on the TV a couple times in 2021 during the televised state trial. And she said she caught me having no context to who I was and she's kind of woo-woo. So she's like, yeah, you had a good vibe. And then my name kind of rung a bell when my email showed up in her box, and so she checked it. She's, oh yeah, that must be Kismet. This must be, this. So, but she said that she was told in 2019 when she was trying to sell her book, really snottily by a agent, we've got lots of doctors writing books. We don't need another one. And she at the time was one of the few Black female doctors who was trying to write. And then after 2020, when suddenly DEI became 123, she was offered, she had interest, she got an agent, they had a bidding war, she got her book published. It's a great book. It should have been published regardless. And now she's got a little bit of a platform. She has said that she had blowback for being outspoken, which is goes to Jesse's point. Like, she did face criticism for daring to air dirty laundry, although it isn't dirty laundry as much as stating the historical record and seeing how the human factors shape the record. And now she's at a new position, and she said that the CEO or the whatever told her boss, yeah, let her do whatever she wants. Basically, we're not going to touch it. It's not worth it to us to try to fight and look bad oppressing like a black female doctor. So she's like, I've got this awareness that it is cosmetic, and also it's my shot to make the most of my voice within their kind of cynical tolerance or dalliance with an altered voice. So those are two separate pieces, but they kind of touch on what has and hasn't changed, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
And how I appreciate that, and how I would say unfortunate, and like I'm glad that she was able to get that, because now using that platform, I'm sure she's telling those stories. But if she hadn't have gotten the platform, would anyone actually listen? That's the crazy part. It's so unfortunate. And status quo at this point. It seems like that's the stage. All right, other folks, where you at? This is if you haven't noticed, this is not going to be Jesse talking the whole time.
Hey Jesse, I can go.
Go for it.
It's Jess from Wisconsin. Hello. I undulate between being really exhausted, angry, and okay. I am working with 2 different nonprofits, which is great. I just don't know how much impact the work I'm doing is going to have, because one of the nonprofits, there's like no communication back from the CEO in regard to all the work that we have done for her. And then the other one, I was asked to start an ally group, and for alumni that have been through their program, and I could do whatever I wanted. So I wanted to do something for queer folks who have been through the program, and have a space that is for queer folks, and to really delve into the intersectionality of what it means to go through all of the anti-LGBTQ legislation going on right now, but also acknowledging the privilege of being white, and how do you keep your heart open when that makes you suffer? How do you keep your heart open to remain anti-racist? Only one person signed up for that, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. So I always come back to me and what I do for myself, and I always come back to Tema Okun's white supremacy racist attributes, and I kind of use that with mindfulness, just to keep my heart open and reflect with that. I did unfriend a family member on Facebook, not because of the family member, but because of their friend. And I hope it's okay if I tell this story. Jesse knows I ramble, so you can cut me off whenever,
You're good.
whenever you want. But so my brother, who's super liberal or whatnot, was complaining about jury duty. And at that time, sorry, y'all, I can't recall the person's name. There had just been another Black man shot by police. And what upset me was that, you know, wouldn't this man's family want someone to be on a jury that cared about Black lives? Not saying this was the reason, you know, my brother was going to be called in. This was just jury duty. And then I got really ticked off because one of his friends wrote, well, just wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt because they won't pick you then. And that made me upset because here you're scapegoating a group of people, Black people, so that you, a white person, doesn't get picked for jury duty. So I did open my big mouth in the comments because it sounded like the conversation was happening. And then, holy crap, one friend just went off the rails because I wasn't having compassion for my brother just not wanting to be on jury duty. And I tried to de-escalate this as much as I could, but it was insane. And then my brother said to me, well, I just told him you're new at this, and so you're just trying. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how that makes me feel either. So it's been weird. But, you know, I just unfriended my brother because I was like, look, if you can't not be reactive to ridiculous things he posts, which seem to be in contrary to how he lives his life, then I'm not gonna know him through Facebook. I'll know him through real life interaction. And that's the other thing too, right? Is I want to surround myself with people that live their lives with integrity. And there's a lot of falsity, right, that goes on with some social media. Not all, but you know, I want to be fair. Not all, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. I've known a couple of you all to share conversations about family members, so that doesn't. I'm sure that resonates with you. Still, anybody else want to share? You reminded me of a few different things. I'm trying not to get on the soapbox, so you know, every now and then. Yeah, go for it, Robin, if you want to.
Hi, good morning. I think that for me, I'm definitely one of those people that my work in anti-racism and interest in all those kind of things sparked with the murder of George Floyd, just because my family has always been really super progressive. And so I was one of those people that thought I was already thinking in the right way and things like that. And so I think that for me, it's been the biggest part of my journey, I think, aside from just like diving in and like reading all the books and watching all the documentaries and talking about it whenever I'm in a space where, you know, that comes up, is just recognizing things that, you know, from my childhood or before this, you know, like 4 or 5 years ago, that I wouldn't have really like recognized as, you know, racism and white supremacy and things like that, just because I was raised around, you know, a lot of people of color and in a lot of diversity, and my parents had friends like that. So it just like, it seemed like, you know, I guess just like a lot of self-reflection and then just reflection in the systems and different things like that. And I think that also, I think I share in something that was shared by Jess actually like several months ago or maybe a year or something, because I'm also a queer person. And so it is kind of hard to like be in that intersection as like a white person too. And so, yeah, I definitely, I guess that's where I'm at mostly, is just like recognizing different things like that, that before I wouldn't have, they wouldn't have even really been on my radar, I don't think. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay, this is a safe space, right? Because I'm going to say something about my work. So many of you might know where I work. kind of we're piggybacking on Jess a little bit about kind of maybe seeing things for maybe being inauthentic or not who they or seeing things for what they really are. I have been doing some really soul searching in my life, and that includes my job and the company I work for. And I just don't know if I want to work for a company who I think is showboating, and doesn't really truly believe the values that they portray. And I see that now, as well at the time that I've been there, through the just some of the practices, that they do. It's a large corporation, and the percentages that they have to put out into the tout that they say, and like we have this many people of color that we've hired, and this fulfilled this, and it's all about the numbers and the DEI and all this stuff. And I just thought, is this real, or are you just filling your numbers? Like, I just don't feel like it's authentic. It's all about how are we presenting it to the public, not just in the space of, and I guess more recently too. If I say this out loud, everybody will know where I work. But, with Pride, too, it's like how do you put things out and then take it back? And if anybody tells anybody that I'm saying this, I'll probably get fired, because I'm not supposed to say my opinion. And so it's like, wow, like this really makes me shift. Like, do I really want to be with life-changing? Like, do I really want to be with a company that acts like this? And so I guess this type of work, as I've been doing this, I've always kind of done this work on, but this environment, this group, it's not about the paychecks and all that. Like, I want to be associated in my life with people, with groups, even with companies that have real values that align with mine. And I'm seriously thinking this isn't it. So
yeah, no, that's real. Thank you for sharing that. And we won't name said company, so don't worry about that. We'll,
so yes, safe space, please.
Yep, no worries. This is a safe space. Yeah, no, I know a lot of people who I'm sure identify with that, working at a larger company, and recognize there's the performative actions of corporate America right now, which is part of a lot of my frustration. And I unfortunately don't have any advice for you because I don't work in those companies, right? Like I appreciate you sharing, because I know that it's real and it helps people like me recognize how real it is. And I also can't even fathom how difficult that could be, because that is part of people's livelihoods, right? It's how you get paid. It's how you support your family. And then when you think about how long, a person may have been at said company, there's a lot of contributing factors that come in that. And I tell people all the time, I have the privilege of being connected to systems and organizations that I don't have allegiance to, because I try to have my allegiance towards people. And at the same time, there's always a trade-off. I learned that a long time ago. And so um, that's part of, the endurance and the stamina of where it kind of takes us. So I appreciate that. I see Tammy, then Katie, then Sean.
Hi. I work in education. I'm a middle school teacher. And I love my district and all that we're doing for racial equity. I'm tired, but that's also because yesterday was like my last day of school. And so I think that's more of where my tiredness is coming from. Um, but yeah, I like resonate so much with what I've been hearing because I married into a very conservative family and I'm the flaming liberal who speaks her mind. So that's caused a lot of contention in a good way. And I've been able to like help out like with my church group with old retired white people to figure out what they can do in their retirement and how they can make impacts on racial equity. And so that's been a lot of fun and encouraging for me that they're like still, they want to change. They want to see a change as an older generation. And I mean, I've started work in racial equity, like I realized my whiteness like 15, 20 years ago. And I also like, I've been questioning systems and like calling out white supremacy culture within my school system, things like that. And I think that's again where my tiredness is coming from, where like I'm being really critical of what I'm expected to do and why is it that I'm expected to perform in certain ways. Why do we expect our students to do certain things? After 2020, like with COVID, I was hoping that we could burn down the school system and make it better. But we're still back to what we were before COVID. And I'm now in a more leadership position. So that just means more questioning for me and more challenging the status quo, which I'm excited for. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. And I hope you get some actual rest this summer. Katie, go for it.
Forgot I had to take myself off mute there for a second, and I haven't used my iPad to do this in a while. So I feel like this is kind of a journey that I've been on for a long time. Before George Floyd was murdered, I went to college for history and gender, women, and sexuality studies, which is very intersectional. And I grew up in Minneapolis, but I grew up in Southwest Minneapolis. So I grew up in the part of Minneapolis that is very segregated to white people. And I moved to New York, and that was hugely eye-opening for me in a lot of ways, in both learning more about like the invasiveness of white supremacy and its impact, and just I learned a lot by moving to New York and living there for 6 years. But I had also kind of started, like, I don't know if a lot of you are familiar with Me and White Supremacy by Layla Syed. That's something that she started like on Instagram, like 6 months, somewhere 6 months or less before George Floyd was murdered. And I was kind of engaging in that and starting that work myself. And then George Floyd was murdered. That also, I think, I was in New York when that happened too. So afterwards, I left the company that I was at. I started at a different company that I'm also no longer at, and was been really engaging in the work, the DEI work at the company I was at. And I don't know if it's necessarily exactly the same as what Amy was saying, but last year, the company that I was at did a couple rounds of layoffs, and it was really disappointing because it felt like all of the work that I had been involved in, all of the things that like I had been pushing and engaging in, didn't really matter, because when it came to who are we laying off, it disproportionately affected the people of color and women at our company. So that kind of just snowballed, and I ended up leaving the company because I was like, I don't think we're actually on the same page anymore, and I don't think your values are what you say they are. And so I have been unemployed since then, and my last day was November 1st. So I'm actually starting a job on Tuesday. But it's kind of been I've been in this sort of liminal space since then, trying to figure out, okay, I found purpose in pushing this at work because it helps move the needle in a place that, might not otherwise like be pushed in this direction. But yeah, I guess I'm kind of in a holding pattern as far as work is concerned. We'll see my new job, what things are like there, and how much I can impact things, or if it aligns with my values and where I want to see us move. But yeah, kind of all over the place, and doing a lot of focus on myself as well. So that's where I'm at. That's where things are at for me.
Thank you for sharing. Appreciate you your transparency.
Yeah.
Sean, go for it, and then I have some thoughts too.
Hey everybody, I live in Western Colorado, and my very first call with the men was April 21. I was in Minneapolis visiting my friend Brett, and he was on the call. It was the week that Derek Chauvin was, that verdict came out. It was also Earth Day that weekend, and so I was at, we went to George Floyd Square, and at that time, Jeremy, I don't think it was corporate. It was, but it was very powerful. It was very moving for my family. It meant a lot just to, not just to see that and everything that had been done to memorialize not just George Floyd, but other African Americans who had, been murdered, and no one had ever been convicted for those murders. So it meant a lot to us, and so I've been on these calls since then. Amy, I work in higher ed. I'm not a professor. I work in facilities, but I work for an organization, a college that has really, I think, embraced a lot in the last 3 years to talk a lot about equity. We just redid our strategic plan, and there's 4 pillars, and they used to be like student academic success, teaching and learning, economic engagement, and organizational effectiveness. And they changed it this year and went through this year-long process to talk about equity and care and innovation as being the pillars for the organization. And beyond that, for MLK Day and Juneteenth coming up, and even just our own non-holidays when we come together, there is a real focus and emphasis on equity and bringing in, people with backgrounds that we may not be familiar with to speak to us. So I'm fortunate to work for an organization that believes in that and really puts a lot of energy into that. On the personal side, though, I'm still at that point where I'm feeling more aware, but not being more engaged, and that's still the struggle, finding like, where's my niche. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at today.
No, I appreciate that, Sean, and always grateful for fellow Coloradians. Always grateful for you, man, and your input and how it works. So we had a variety of people share, which I'm grateful for, and hopefully you hear the wide range of where people are, right? And I think that's something that I really wanted to highlight, and I didn't want it to just be me saying that. I think, and I think I've always said this, but like, this work is so intersectional. You have to almost like recognize that in order to take in everything, you almost have to like recognize you can only do so much. So for example, for me, I think when we first started these calls, a wide range of conversations and topics, still centered around some of the same stuff, but I recognize like there's only, over time, I kept recognizing there's only so much that I can actually do. And so as we are having these conversations and working through how to, get over a hump or engage with people, a question that you may or may not have, different perspectives. At the same time, in my own work, I was trying to figure out, okay, what change can I actually make? Especially not being at an organization and inside, a system. So that was shot. I do have relationships, but at the end of the day, nobody reports to me. I don't have a budget. And so that's kind of where the building stuff came along. For me to recognize, like, how do I take a space inside a community that I'm familiar with and then try to infiltrate that system and all that connects to. And at the same time, I have fellow DEI practitioners who don't like the responses that I give them when they ask me if they stopped asking me, but they wouldn't even necessarily ask me if I thought something was helpful. They would come and say, hey, I want you to be a part of this thing, and I would decline because I thought it was performative. And I stopped getting invites, and still to this day stop getting invites from prominent folks. You would be surprised if I mentioned these organizations and names. And at the same time, I just had to go, yep, here it is. I've lost a few friends, black folks and white folks actually, from disagreeing with, tactics and what people, what I think people should do. So I'm not asking you to do anything that I'm not willing to do. And I also recognize, like, if the endurance or stamina continues to fade and you don't find places that will rejuvenate you and kind of remind you of those wins and why you're doing this work, you will tap out. And for some of us, I would say it's even okay to tap out and tap somebody else in and then get back in the race. And so that was kind of one of my main thoughts and processes. Like, there are a lot of people, there's two thoughts on this. There are a lot of people that are tired of this anti-racism work on the right-wing side. There are also a lot of people who are tired of doing this work because they realize, kind of what Molly was talking about in the beginning, like, it actually does cost me something. And so I've lost relationships. I've lost friendships. I've been judged, misjudged. I've now had to take a deeper look at different things because now I have this information and I don't know what to do with it except ask questions. And when I get the answers, I don't like the answers. All of those things are true. And then there's another viewpoint of, like, if you are white in this work and you're tired, people are like, oh, well, suck it up, buttercup. Right? Like, and I'm not saying, that's not me directly saying it, but I just hear and see the different sides and perspectives. What has been true to me, and I feel like I've said this probably more times than you would like to hear it, is just continuing to remind myself, like, what is my goal? Like, what am I focused on? What am I shooting towards? What am I trying to do? And the more clear you get around that, I think two things happen. One, you find ways to move towards that, which is what that progress looks like. And you start to, like, I don't know what you want to say, like, take inventory of who you spend your time with or where you spend your time. Because if it's not working towards getting there, it feels like you're disjointed or you're wasting time, or you would rather be with, said group of people working on said issue, whatever that may be. Outside of that, I feel terrible. I don't have any other suggestion on how to keep you moving. Like, I feel terrible, and at the same time, I'm like, I can only give you what I have. I do have hope, and it fades depending on the day and the month, that we're moving in the right direction. Sometimes it can be really, really, really hard to figure that out. For example, Juneteenth is coming up. There are a million, and I am not over exaggerating, a million Juneteenth events happening in small, rural, suburban towns that probably don't even know the history of Juneteenth, and even in metropolitan cities all across the world, let alone the United States. And I don't know how I feel about that. I was at a coffee shop the other day, and you know, I'm grateful that people are acknowledging, and if it's only acknowledging because corporate dollars are at stake and we feel like we have to do something, I'd rather you not. But I was at a coffee shop the other day, and it actually warmed my heart to hear this guy that I did not know. Like, he knew me. I felt terrible. I didn't know who he was. And he was talking to a client, I believe, maybe a coworker, about the history of Juneteenth as it is, like, as it has been in the Twin Cities. And it was so refreshing to have one person that actually, like, has the real story of before it became a national holiday. Here were the two, east side of St. Paul and in Rondo neighborhood, and things that used to happen in North Minneapolis and then South Minneapolis. And then, like, his explanation and expanding, like, to a city like St. Cloud, which their Juneteenth celebration was literally 90 to 80% Somali American. But they had, like, the history of whatever, like, why we're celebrating versus another similar town, and it was just corporate sponsors. And then what it's become now, right? And so I think that there are ways that we will see performatism or performative actions across the board. One post I haven't made, because I know there's some people who are going to take it too personal. I said, I think we need to start normalizing the way that we normalize performative actions by companies. I think we need to start normalizing performative actions by friends and relationships. And that's going to piss somebody off, so I haven't posted that yet. I don't actually mean directly towards any person in my circle of influence, but there are people that I've gone, oh, that's what you're doing. I got it. Because you're the chief diversity officer at said company, because you're the community relations person at said company, you want to be my friend. Got it. Not just because I'm black, because they're also, a person of color or a woman or part of the LGBTQIA group, but because this is an agenda item for you. Got it. And as soon as you leave that organization, this is not going to be something that you're rooted in. So, Katie, I appreciate, one, you not mentioning said company, but also just being able to, like, remain true. And so for all of you who continue to show up, my encouragement is, like, continue to do the work in whatever way, shape, or form. You do the work, and continue to use those networks and support systems that we have. Just put in, I'm going to throw this in the chat, just put in the Mighty Networks group, which you may or may not use as much anymore, a wonderful resource of some folks that have taken that article or document from Dr. Tima Okun, where's my chat, and have, like, run with it on multiple different levels. So thank you for putting that in there, Jess. There was actually some stuff I didn't even know that was in there. Some stuff looked familiar. One of the ones that stood out to me, and I'm going to throw this in the chat, is the work ones. It's pivoting away from white supremacy culture at work. And so there's a table that basically says, like, here's the norm of what kind of I've gone over that's on that list. And then here would be something opposite on how to take, like, paternalism or perfectionism and what it would look like to support, like, in a belonging kind of community. It's the solutions that we're always looking forward to, but sometimes we don't know the language. Sometimes we don't know the questions. Sometimes we don't even know what it looks like because we don't see it. And so I'm just telling people, like, continue to use your resources as much as possible. There was one other thing I was going to share. Resources. I ran into this issue also recently with, because I can do this more practically. For the last 3 years, I think, I've done this back to school gathering. Some of you come at Hall Elementary School, which is now a STEM Academy school. And so basically we have done like their back to school welcome day. I don't know what you call it. But it's like a school supply, like instead of just doing a separate school supply drive for the community, and I was also doing the coats, we kind of combined them and said, let's focus at this one school. Here's an example of how I see our influence. I'm going to use me, but I genuinely mean our influence. I have built this relationship with Hall for I don't even know how many years now. And we kind of commandeered this like lunchroom, and on every table there were, one, you all are clearly invited to come and do this because we need volunteers this year. That's the soft plug. That's my only ask. Two, we like commandeered the entire lunchroom. We had coat racks full of coats, snow pants, hats, gloves, that whole deal. We had tables with backpacks, with notebooks, with crayons, with color pencil, with scissors, with whatever. And so people could come in. We had volunteers kind of serving them almost like a shopping space, helped them bag it up, did all that stuff. And then I had a few people that reached out around wanting to partner. And they were like, oh, well, we have money. And I was like, I don't need your money. Like, I literally have a storage full of stuff. 2 storages that cost me a lot of money every year, full of stuff. And I told them no. And because I told them no, they were basically like, oh, well, you know, spreading rumors in the community about me. And of course, it got back to some people who know me. Didn't end up working out. But like those simple things, because people have agendas. So I bring that up because this year we're going to still do the back to school group. We're probably going to add another school. And in my mind, I'm thinking, man, it's a STEM academy, or it's, you know, STEM focused school. It would make sense to partner with organizations or companies that focus on STEM. Boston Scientific is one of them. I don't know the other ones, but that's just the first one that came to mind. And at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I want to partner with you guys, because there's probably some red tape or some hoops. And I'm learning that even in the, you know, commercial real estate. Like, there's all types of hoops. It's just a matter of, are we willing to have that conversation and call it out? Or are we going to continue to allow those performative rules, regulations, actions, however you want to define them, continue to happen? And I just live by the standard, like, you know what, I'd rather not deal with you guys, so I'll call it out, probably at the risk of losing a relationship, and at the same time still make it happen. That's just the trade-off. I would probably get more money, it would probably be great, and at the same time, like, I'm just not willing to do that. But I can't say that you should or should not, you know, make those decisions. It's just something that, as you're thinking about what is the goal and what does progress look like, you have to always recognize that there's a trade-off. And that's kind of just like, it is what it is. So I wanted to kind of like have us share, but also recognize, you know, if we are halfway through the year and feeling already exhausted, or our stamina is low, you gotta find things, ways, people, initiatives, groups, whatever that may be, that re-energize you. Holly, you and I were emailing, I think, or texting. I met with Jen. I was so excited after meeting with Jen the other day. It was such a great conversation, because it was just like, let's call out some things. She asked some questions, and I was like, you're not gonna like the answer to this, but here's what it is, right? I asked some questions about if people were, you know, trying to buy these things and talking to other organizations. Like, you have to find people that can re-energize you, and places, spaces, all those things, because there will probably be more people that will drain you and take from you than you expect or even would like. So I know that's not like the most encouraging way of empowering you, but, you know, here we are. So I'm excited. I'm very grateful, and I don't know if I say this enough. I'm thankful that you all. Yeah, go ahead, do your thing, Jimmy. I'm thankful that you all continue to show up. It's never been a numbers thing for me. I'm actually more intrigued by the consistency of people in the names and, you know, the emails and texts that I get to engage with folks. So thank you for that. Selfishly, if you happen to be in the Twin Cities in August or want to be involved in that back to school group, I am planning on doing that event, whether I got these partners or not. And so I'm always trying to create spaces for people, excuse me, for people to actually get involved and connected. And then with the building, we are actually supposed to close on July 30th. Godly, it's been a long process. Also in the process of writing a book about the process. And I can't release that until I close on the documents so that they don't take the building away from me, because I got some stuff to say. So I'm excited about that. I sent a message to Amy. They wear a shirt with her name in it. Yeah. Good point. They did not last year, by the way. Those folks that you're connected to, they didn't. I told them not to. I sent a message to Amy, but like, here's one example of something that I'm very grateful for you all for. A while ago, this is months ago, I don't even remember what it was. I mentioned on the call something about like using your resources, certifications, something like that. And Amy sent me some forms, which then reminded me that I had some other forms about becoming a diverse vendor with the state. And so one of the forms that I filled out that Amy sent me, I did get approved to be identified as a Black-owned business. Basically, it's to like you get preference for proposals to work with companies like the Department of Veterans or something random. It's a checklist, and it's also like giving access to create more opportunities. But like when you have those, or I'm thinking of Sean when you were talking about like higher ed, there's always like random proposals of people that are doing stuff. Always be thinking of, well, I don't want to say always. I try to think of the folks that are probably not top of mind. And so even working with this project manager on my building, I told him, I said, hey, I would love to work with diverse vendors. And even when I said that, I was like, I don't think he really knows what I mean when I say that. And so I was like, who do you know? And he only mentioned one woman-owned construction company, which wasn't fine. I know Mary, don't worry. But everybody else was like a white male-owned company that works with staff folks or construction workers of color, but not like a woman-owned construction company, a minority-owned construction company, a Latinx-owned construction company, right? It was just like, hey, how are you doing this? And you've been doing this for, 5-10 years, and you don't know anybody. Because people just don't know. So yeah, I would just say, like, do your best to continue to spread those resources, spread those lists that are available probably in every city, state, county, region, and continue to, get to know folks and see what people are doing, because you never know how those relationships come around. The other thing I would say is do not be afraid, and I know this is a extrovert, direct communicator saying this, do not be afraid to just reach out to people. Like, if you see something that's really cool or that's intriguing, I am constantly amazed at how open people are to taking random questions. Like I understand there's this thing of like, I don't want to be like the white person asking the person of color to do this thing. Like, I get that. And when people are genuinely intrigued and interested in learning, and it doesn't really cost the person anything other than like, I'd love to hear about it and maybe, here's an opportunity, I think people are very receptive to that. So that was my short little soapbox. So I appreciate y'all. I didn't realize it's 9:03. I don't have anything else. I don't know if you have questions for me. I have a little bit of time. I can answer any questions. If not, you can go and enjoy your Saturday. Holly, I feel like I didn't respond to. Did I respond to your text or email? Okay. I never know if I.
Yeah. I'm just hoping. I mean, Jan's very. We just talked about how you were, the obstacles you face, not just you, but everybody in commercial real estate. And people, a common response is, but it's illegal.
Right. Yes.
I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation where, but it's illegal. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even start. So
yeah. You know what I asked her, which I thought was really dope. It was actually mind blowing for me, which helped me keep going towards the list. I asked her how many people, like, is it common? Like, I know a lot of people come to like a Venn Foundation or nonprofits seeking funding and capital to start their business. But are there people, or does she see a lot of people that come to them to try to find funding to acquire properties to support those businesses? And she was like, oh yeah, barely any. Like, you're probably one of two people, and I don't even know the other person on top. And I was like, that is the lane. And I actually talked to the CEO at Women Venture about that on Thursday. And so part of me recognized, like, I know that I'm doing something different. And I've gotten that it's a legal conversation in more ways than one. And I also know, like, if I can figure out this model, it actually will work for the next 5 buildings, which is very interesting.
have you talked to Alicia Phillips recently?
She's on. I think we have a meeting next week. She's on the list.
Okay, good, because they have some new funding thing that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, yep. That's why I want to talk to her. That's the route I feel like I'm moving in the next 5 years. Like, how do I raise more money?
Okay.
How do I also put it into something legally and acquire more properties, but also avoid the securities kind of run. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think we're meeting next week. Kelsey, we actually didn't get to what people's plans were for Juneteenth. But if you have, for my folks in the Twin Cities, there are, again, I think 1,000 things happening. I will be at Sanctuary Covenant Church, 11 to 3. I actually wrote that down, on Juneteenth. That's the church I go to. It's in North Minneapolis, but we just kind of allow community partners to be on our lawn, and for the last couple of years, it's been actually really dope. So I will be there, but I know there's something happening in the Rondo neighborhood, and I think there's like 15 other things happening that I don't know about. Yeah, that's all. So if you know folks that are interested either in helping with the back to school event, it's not until August, so we got some time, but we're planning now. I'd love to work with you, partner, if you need volunteers, if you need I know companies need volunteer spaces. And don't worry, I will make sure that nothing that day is performative, because I have a very strict policy of meeting and understanding with everybody. But it was a really good event. Molly, you were there last year, right? Yeah, it was super dope last year. And it was super, like, it just felt very organic. I don't know if, Molly, you want to say anything about it.
Yeah, I agreed. And it's one of the things I'm looking forward to doing again. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Just seeing the impact, meeting all the people. Yeah, I would recommend.
Yeah, super dope.
We'd love to have you.
I need a nonprofit, so if anybody wants to help me build out this nonprofit so we can raise more money, I'm also down for that, because as Holly told me in the beginning, I should have had a nonprofit when I got this building. Probably would have been able to raise more money. So while I was joking and making that ask, that was actually a dead serious ask. If anybody's interested in helping me put that together, I would be grateful, because I have learned this year and last year, I cannot do multiple things at once. Even though I'm still doing things at once, I can only focus like my actual energy on one area. That is a learning curve for me. So the process of soliciting help and actually mobilizing productive people, Katie, don't worry, you are on the list, has been a learning process for me. So, all right, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all. I hope you have a great day. And if you need anything, of course, just reach out. Let me know.
Thanks, Jesse.
Peace.